Yes.
You know, we had Jeremy
Yeah,
Corbyn.
everything's going south. Yeah,
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 everything
sure.
is
It's all
going
going
south.
south, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's going south, but that it's not all or nothing. It doesn't mean that it goes south until everything completely vanishes.
Yeah, but do you think
right? Which many people can easily say that, you know, it's all going south. There's absolutely nothing we can do.
OKDoomer, welcome to my first show this new decade. And for this show, we have a guest, our first guest in the 2020s, Lord Hugh. And first of all, Lord, I just have to congratulate you with finishing your sci-fi novel before me, you know, because in our latest talk, we finished with a little competition between us to be the first one over the line. So congratulations to that.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the plug. That's very welcome.
We're gonna return to St. George and the Methane Dragon later on in this show, but firstly, I would like to take us 10 months back in time, when a lot of people in the Doomosphere heard you for the first time, and you were going on about XR, Extinction Rebellion, and you were kind of hoping to talk to them and hoping to make them stop pleading for change from the politicians and just go for the keys to the city, so to speak, to go for the economy instead of the politicians, because the politicians, as you said, were just servants for the economy, really. And the interesting thing, I think, is that you go on to talk about how hitting the economy, for instance, with a debt strike or something similar, would maybe be able to stop things like the Belt and Road Initiative, the Chinese infrastructure program for the half of the planet, and it would be able to deal a death knell to the American economy and the Chinese economy, and basically burst the derivatives bubble or something. Is that right?
Yeah, that's basically it. The financial system is vulnerable. So people make the argument about why bother? You know, it's like it's probably going to collapse anyway.
Yeah.
There are a couple of arguments, and one of them is that they're probably going to stoke it up again, even if, you know, the Weimar Republic managed to stoke things back together again.
I just have to stop you because I must finish my question. So my question is really...
sorry, I thought you did. I thought you were
No.
Sorry,
I was just taking a little breather there. So when you got these lockdowns because of the Wuhan virus over in China, where schools are locked down, like it's like a school strike, a permanent school strike for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and you have factory lockdowns where workers are not allowed to come into work for like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. You have kind of got a very solid strike at the financial economy and the industrial system and the stock exchanges. So how do you see that compared to what activists would maybe have been able to do if people follow the advice to go to a death strike or something?
Well, it's debatable. I mean, all these things are fuzzy, but going back to 2008 and the crash then, there was quite a lot of evidence that there was a direct correlation with the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions for GDP. So there was a thing about a 10% maybe overall reduction in economic activity in at least America after 2008. And there was a corresponding reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, which of course Obama claimed, that was all the green policies working, but he was proved wrong because as the economy came back, the greenhouse gas emissions went up in lockstep. So this will definitely be a test. They think that the coronavirus is probably going to cap out in probably about April. I just read something today. So that gives a good enough stretch to at least get some data on the Chinese economy. It might not be correlated so directly in China, but I would think it would be because that's where all the manufacturing is going on, and their economy is basically a manufacturing base. So there should be a direct correlation with emissions. I presume that the power and the grid is not running at full tilt. I presume they measure it according to the load. And so it should go down with the lack of usage, but it's going to be tremendously interesting to see. And if it is, it's a great case for saying, look, guys, it's a one-to-one correlation with the economy. You've got to hit the economy to hit greenhouse gases. And that's pretty much what the politicians have been saying back since Maggie Thatcher in 1979. She addressed the United Nations. And she said exactly that. We got to basically measure this according to the economy.
Yeah.
And we did. The economy expanded and greenhouse gases expanded. So yeah, I think it holds.
Yeah, I've been looking into for a week or so the spread of this virus, and also the writings about it in scientific papers, and it's I sense a kind of optimistic tone from you compared to my impression, because the thing is that it's infectious before symptoms arrive in a person. So you can go around infecting other people like for a week or so, even before you know you have it. And it's of course infectious during your symptoms, and also after your symptoms have left and maybe you are written out of the hospital or whatever, you can still infect other people. And then you also have there is no guarantee that you won't get it again after you believe you are immune. You can get the same virus again, or you can get a mutation again. So there's no we don't know if there is an immunity period after you've had it. So this thing could go around the globe and then come back again around the globe after that. And it's the way I understand it, there's no reason to believe that this is going to stay in China. However the virus got out or came here, we don't really know, but it's there, and it's pretty damn scary, I would say. Yeah.
Well, I think we should put it in proportion, because the last count I saw, they're heading for about 400 fatalities in China. And you have to compare that to, say, something like the Sackler family and just, the opioid epidemic, to name another epidemic that nobody talks about much anymore. And I'm pretty sure the Sackler family killed more people than coronavirus, but it'll go unreported today. So I think that they're projecting about 39,000. The CDC, I think, is projecting about 39,000 people, casualties in Wuhan. So it's not a spectacular disaster. It's slightly less lethal than SARS.
No, it's actually more lethal.
Economic.
It's actually
I
more.
don't think it's going to have a huge attrition rate.
It's actually more lethal than SARS, and it's also spreading faster than swine flu. So it's like, from the virus perspective, it's the best of both viruses. It feels very much like a design virus, and there are some speculations about it being actually a design virus. So I would kind of think that it's not going to be over in April. That would surprise me very much, because there's really no scientific reason for it to throw in the towel in April, even though we would like it.
Well, I mean, the CDC runs these calculations, so they check in the infection rate. So I thought it was less less lethal than SARS, but more infectious. So it's getting around faster, but it's not quite as lethal. I thought that SARS was about 10% lethal, and I thought coronavirus is about 6%
Okay.
mortality. But it's kind of, they have, I'm not quite sure how this works. They have an inpatient or actual patient and some kind of hit count for the disease. So
Mm.
anyway, I think the reason why they presume it caps out in April is because they have formulas and they plug in all the numbers. And one of the key things is how quickly they can contain it and isolate it. So that's a big variable because it will, I mean, if you write and it does run away with itself, it'll probably be because it winds up in a country that doesn't have a good healthcare system. So in something like Africa or something like that.
Yeah.
Contagion
I've heard,
could spread rapidly through Africa. And
or
there are a lot of
India,
Chinese
for
people in
instance.
Africa. There are a lot of Chinese workers in Africa.
Yeah, or India is also a huge country with like 1.2 billion people, and I've heard like that there are people who say that there is an 11% death rate if you are in a modern society with good hospitals and with capacity. But if you are like out in the boonies or in the jungle or rural Africa without healthcare or hospitals around you, it could be like 60-70% death rate. So it's like we haven't seen the whole story of this virus yet. I'm pretty sure. So I've prepared another question for you here. It's I think it's fair to say that most of the technology that we need to produce and build for the Green New Deal are going to be produced in China. And that is also kind of a worry for at least for the Democratic Party in America, that if they are going to go ahead with the Green New Deal, and the European Union is also going for the Green New Deal, they would need like wind turbines and solar technology and stuff made in China or India, or that's not necessarily going to go after plan. I think if these huge industrial economies are going to close down for a longer time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that point. I think the guys in the natural history museums and biologists there, they actually published a report saying exactly that the green economy is fiction, because if you just work out Britain's needs, if you replaced all the, say, internal combustion engines in Britain with electric cars, that would use up the entire world's copper supply. And that's before you've even got to the lithium in the batteries, and before you get to neodymium and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy talk. You can't the minerals. There's so many limits in terms of minerals, and then you have to factor in the fact that all of these things are mined, assembled, and manufactured with a fossil fuel dividend. So you take that fossil fuel dividend away. That means that we have cheap oil, subsidized oil. Oil is a very dense fuel. The guys making these things have Wheaties that are essentially oil on a stalk. It comes from a field that's fertilized with fossil fuel products. If you take fossil fuel out of the equation, it all collapses. I think that's what Professor Smith said quite well, didn't he, in that presentation of his how to enjoy the doom. What was that lecture that he did?
How to enjoy the end of the world, I think.
Yeah, how to enjoy the end of the world, which I thought he kind of nailed it, and the fact that these are all pipe dreams. Yeah.
I saw there was a big celebration last year when the first Danish, what do you call it, cargo shipping vessels came through the Arctic, from China to Europe over the Arctic Ocean, and coincidentally, or maybe not, it was carrying huge, gigantic wind turbines. The whole ship was loaded with these green tech wind turbines from China. So it's like, and it doesn't really run on solar energy over the Arctic. It's like heavy bunker oil or something, isn't it?
Yeah, but the footprint, the carbon footprint of those freighters is extraordinary. I mean, I think just an ocean liner, I can't remember exactly how much it takes, but I think it's something like 1 liter per per meter of travel, something like that. One liter per meter of travel. So it's some kind of statistic I remember. But anyway, it's a ridiculous carbon footprint. Those things have huge engines. You have to imagine those in terms of generation for like a small town or something like that.
Yeah, I actually heard something even worse. I can't remember exactly, but I think I heard that one of these ocean liners, these cargo ships, in 1 year it releases the same amount of CO2 as all the planet's cars or something. Something really crazy like
I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen something like that too.
Yeah. So it's like it's not really very clean technology that they are delivering to Europe. It's more like Germany wants to have something that is clean on the paper. It's like when they buy wood pellets from America, from the Appalachian forests. They get a clean fuel to use in Berlin and Frankfurt, but it's like if you take the whole account and the whole system into the account, it's only creative accounting, creative bookkeeping that makes it even sound green. It's like
Greta highlighted that, but it's all over. I mean, you look at the fisheries industry. Everybody thinks, fish farming. You talk to an economist, anything about ocean degradation, they seem to think, well, that's going to affect the fishing industry. Everything to an economist to do with the sea is, a fish farm.
Yeah.
And nobody says those fish are fed by pellets, and they're trying to transition off the pellets that come from Peru. But as you stand now, they're anchovy pellets that are harvested unsustainably off, the west coast of South America.
Yeah.
So it's basically taking one fish out of South America, transporting it in one of these huge ships to Europe, to then say dump in all these little ecosystems here in Greece. They wreck the ecosystem. And it's just to transfer it into some other fish that, that people will eat, tilapia or whatever, that people prefer to have on their plates in Europe. It's just exchanging one, unsustainable industry for another. But nobody accounts for that. And you'll never see that accounting.
No, and it's just crazy, and it just has to end. So if we get, let's say that you are optimistic, and let's say that this close down of the factories in Asia is going to last from February to June instead of April, like that's twice the time you said. People have said that the Chinese economy was already showing signs of a depression ahead of this virus crisis. So how close are we to seeing a derivative bubble or economic time bomb going off because of these setbacks for the economy?
So no one knows is the simple answer, because it's kind of opaque. The derivatives bubble is immense. It's I think the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, they underreported by half just because they're so terrified of the real figure. But it's somewhere near 1.5 quadrillion. How coupled that is to orders and things from China, I don't know, and I don't think anybody else knows. But the Belt and Road Initiative, there were some reports that it was just slowing. It's been about 5 years now where they've built these masses of ports. They've overbuilt on infrastructure, and in general, the infrastructure was filled. That's how it used to be. it was filled in about 12 months. There was about a 12-month lag, but the slack was being taken up with the infrastructure build. But it's not happening anymore. The loads and loads, it's actually turning negative now. So the amount of infrastructure is, the inventory of infrastructure is building up. If you look at some port like Piraeus here in Greece, which was part of the Belt and Road Initiative, that's kind of a ghost town as far as I know. I don't think that's paying its way. I don't think there's a lot of traffic there. And I think there are, literally empty ports around China, apartment complexes, freeways without cars on them. So people are definitely seeing that it's slowing down. But how that relates to the financial system in America is completely unknown. The the China Development Bank and about 9 other banks inside China are funding the Belt and Road Initiative. They have a lot more agreements coming down the pipeline from the ECB and the IMF. Everybody wants a slice of it. But I think they're over leveraged, and I think they've overbuilt. And so I think in China, I think business people say, they have some phrase for it, like whatever it is in Chinese, they kind of mock it as, one man, one dead end or something, because if you get involved in it, they say you're going to get burned.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it is slowing down already, but it's opaque. I don't think anybody really could quantify,
Because
as far as I know.
Because the way I understand it, and I don't really understand economy at all, I'm just total amateur on that, but the way I understand it related to our societies and our globalized societies and economy, there is a potential that the virus could could kill, like, just let's say 1 million, just for simplicity, and then the economic and financial chaos or maybe collapse that causes could kill like 1,000 times more than that, because our entire economy is interconnected.
It's close coupled.
Yeah, it's like if a Norwegian fishing boat gets a catch, they send that to China for packaging, and then back to Norway to the shops, to the customers. It's like, it's like everything is connected and built on just-in-time delivery and everything. So and I think most nations, even in Europe and America, can't even feed themselves with what they grow there or what they produce of food there. So it's like, if the international economy collapses and trade between the nations and the continents collapses, it's going to be a big setback for the way we feed ourselves and our kids, I think.
Well, the way I would expect it goes down is it becomes a managed economy. So it becomes a wartime economy. And then in extremes, you'd get rationing and things like that. So if you go back to, say, the Spanish influenza virus in 1914, I think there were 20 million people all told that died in that. But you can't really tell the effect on the economy because everybody was at war.
Yeah.
So people still get fed. They just get fed in a different way with rationing and that kind of thing. So it's we are already in a command economy. It's been a while. In effect, since 2008, we are in a wartime economy. It's kind of a fiction that there's basically a free market now, because for one thing, there's no price discovery. There's free money. The bailouts and the buybacks of stock means that we're all in Never Neverland.
Yeah.
So it's all, a house of cards and smoke and mirrors wherever you look. There's no reality in it anywhere. So it is kind of like a wartime economy. And so it could be kind of surprising that you wouldn't actually notice that much impact. You would see stagnation, maybe deflation. There's certainly the growth would go out of the economy. GDP would stall, but it might not be cataclysmic like say the preppers and stuff. I think they might get a shock how it goes down. I think the general rule I'd say is that it gets more totalitarian. It gets more like after a hurricane or something like that. It gets more like the disaster relief after Puerto Rico or Katrina or something like that. That's my guess.
Well, then you have there was a 4,000 passenger cruise ship that went into Rome, and the mayor just said, no way, you're not going to go to let these tourists go into Rome, and they actually had suspected or confirmed cases of the coronavirus on the cruise ship. So they were just shown out to sea again, or just kept in the harbor with no people visiting land. And I think you covered it even in your novel. How dependent many countries like Greece and stuff are of a tourist economy. There's no more fish in the Mediterranean, so they have to fish for tourists instead.
Yeah, that's for sure, and they can pull them in quite well.
Yeah.
But ships get quarantined more regularly than I think people realize. You can get outbreaks on a ship because it's going to different ports, and ports are not very sanitary places anyway.
No.
So it's not that uncommon that you could get a scare and get a cruise ship actually quarantined. What will stop people traveling is money. So it's really if the economy winds down. So, for example, take a Green New Deal, for instance. That would take a big wedge out of the Treasury's budget, and it would be covered by taxes and carbon taxes and stuff like that. So people won't have enough money to travel to places like Greece, and Greece is already hurting.
Yeah, but you also have the fact that Chinese tourists are one of the biggest groups of tourists, like in Norway and in Greenland and a lot of places. So just from having Chinese people in lockdown or maybe no fly to different countries, just that would harm the tourist economy quite a lot, I think.
Oh yeah, but the thing is how it actually pans out. So it takes a while for that to filter through. If you have a tourist economy, it's kind of like a seasonal economy. It's kind of like selling ice cream or something.
Yeah.
They only know in Greece how bad the season is, if it was a commercially successful season or not, somewhere around October.
Okay.
So if you ask people here who have a business and you say, June or somewhere, July or something, and say, oh, how's business this year? Is it a good year? And it's like, it's too early to tell. They won't be able to tell until around about October. What happens around about October is then they can't pay rent and stuff like that kind of at the end of the year when they come to renegotiate the lease. So it takes a while for a tourist economy to actually start to bite. As we sit here now, everything's kind of dormant. The local people are out in a place where I'm like now. It's a local economy. The places that have a tourist economy, they literally boarded up. They might as well be in quarantine.
Yeah.
They won't open until about May. So if this winds down by April, it might not have a dent in it.
We have to touch on some climate stuff as well, and I'm pretty sure you've heard 100 times people mention the airplane lockdown on 9/11 in America, which was like 2 or 3 days or something, and how that is supposed to have changed the temperature over the American, the U.S. American continent. Now we're going to see a lot more plane traffic. You can't see it on this video because it looks like business as usual with planes flying everywhere to China and around China. But further down the line, you could see fewer planes in the sky in some areas of the world, and also these long factory closures. So my guess is that this will be, if you think about it like an experiment, even though it just happened for other reasons, for health and political reasons. If you look at it as an experiment of what happens if major factories in East Asia shut down and it runs for 4 or 5 weeks, we could really see actually this aerosol masking effect being weakened over Asia, maybe bigger parts of the world too, because it spreads around, and we could see more sunlight hitting the ground on the planet, and thus a rapid heating, even on top of the usual abrupt climate change. So that is interesting, how that is going to go. I'm pretty sure from only what has happened and what we know so far this year, I'm pretty sure we're going to burst through the 1.5 degree Paris United Nations target this year in 2020. And the people, the information activists talking about these things, they claim that we are through 1.5 degrees Celsius already, because the United Nations figures are cheating, because they claim that the Industrial Revolution started in 1950 or 1850 or something. It's like they're not.
1850,
Their baseline isn't really pre-industrial. They just moved it to somewhere where we had better data, just for.
Well, they moved it, yeah. Sneaky. Yeah.
So then maybe even 2 degrees could be, if you put pre-industrial temperatures to the pre-industrial era, then maybe we could burst through 2 degrees Celsius in 2020 with this the brighter skies, really. When the aerosols and the particles from industry, when they fall out of the air because there is not so much industrial production, you get brighter skies, and the sun rays can hit the planet like they used to do before in the pre-industrial era. So we could go up to 2 degrees warmer than before industry this year.
Yeah, and with a lag of only a few weeks too.
Yeah, it's really fast.
It is a complex effect, though. So for every paper that I found that says, that there's 0.8 of a degree rise or something like that, then I've found other ones that said, no, it's compensated by water vapor. Then water vapor itself is a greenhouse gas. Then you have to take that into account. And so it gets complicated quickly, because the more heat there is on the ground, the more evaporation there is and stuff like that, and that's more condensation. And so there's nothing simple about it, I think.
Yeah, but I think what you mentioned there is actually self-reinforcing, because you get the aerosol away and it gets warmer. You get more water vapor, as you said. Then that also warms up. So it actually strengthens the effect that we will get from less pollutants, I think.
Yeah, well, I must say that when I read that paper, I thought what you just said.
Yeah.
And I was kind of amazed that they said, oh, no, it all pans out, so it's not, the effect is quite muted.
Yeah, sometimes they do that in magazines and the newspapers. They actually do the opposite. They say it the opposite of what it's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, so I must say that I would have thought that that's a runaway feedback loop, just like you said. If the water vapor is increasing, we're off to the races. But I mean, in my mind, I think at 2 degrees Celsius, there are a lot of feedbacks that are kicking in that will run away very quickly. So
yeah, they're all already running away very quickly.
they're already running away.
And
But the thing I'm looking at, really keeping my eye on, is the fires. So the fire, in the tundra, if they're bigger this year than they were last year, I'd think, oh boy, it's really bad. It's really bad.
I think Sweden and Norway and Finland is going to be really bad this summer because there is almost no snow. There we have a cottage in Norway, and also all the way up to northern Sweden, or pretty far up north. And the thing is, if you are snow-free in late February, early March, and it keeps being snow-free, and it starts drying up really early too, and you get, you probably know that you have got midnight sun in these areas in the North Scandinavia, so it keeps, the sun keeps baking 24 hours, and it's,
yeah, but it's not very strong, is it? I mean, it's for crops.
Yeah,
and stuff
you
like
get
that.
up.
It's pretty weak.
You get up to 25, 30 degrees Celsius in April, May, June, and it's often warm like that in the night as well, because it never sets. So this is making a huge dry up effect on the vegetation, and causes fires.
So just, I want to ask you a question here. So,
Go ahead.
have you heard anybody, like scientists or any team or anybody, break ranks and say, guys, this really is 10 alarm fire drill? Because I wonder how long that would take before somebody did a study like that. Because I just intuitively, I get such a feeling now that what we're seeing in the news is so out of whack with the projections and the models. And I'm feeling in my bones that the models are falling apart. And I haven't seen anybody come out and say, look, guys, it's, basically do a headless chicken, in effect, in a scientific paper and say, the models are falling apart, things are going haywire, look at the methane spike. I haven't seen anything like that, but I'm kind of expecting at least somebody to come out publicly and say it.
I think you can see it already, but you have to read between the lines. My clearest case is that if you read any of the past 3 reports from the IPCC, the land and the ocean and the 1.5 report, you can actually, you have to read it like the Soviet Russians used to read Pravda. They look for what is not there, So so what is not in the climate reports is a look ahead for when or what signs they would see that we were crossing the tipping point, like in 5 years or 10 years, So there is no speculation or writing about when in the future we're going to cross it. It's just very vague sentences about tipping points, and the more the merrier. They want to talk about 1,000 tipping points instead of the big one, So the very fact that they don't write about could we cross the tipping point and it being too late, next year or in the middle of the decade or at the beginning of next decade, those things are not in the reports. It's just sort of kind of watered out, and every single glacier in the world is a tipping point on its own, and blah blah blah. You kind of have to know the field to understand the field very good, in order to see that this is not there, because most people can't see things that are not there.
Well, by omission. But yeah, I think that they claim that things are omitted because they can't reach consensus. If something is contentious, then they just drop it from the report. And of course, the most contentious things are the most risky things, and so it's very convenient policy.
Yeah,
But I must say, I consider myself a real expert on the game of reading between the lines on government propaganda. Anybody that was in apartheid South Africa learned to, because there was heavy censorship, and so you read the news, reading between the lines, and then it becomes a kind of a game because the government then knows that this is what you'll guess, so they'll underreport it this way, so you think that, and then they say, it's all this game of double bluffs and things like that in the newspaper. It gets to be a very intricate game.
It's like the prisoner's dilemma, isn't it?
It is a bit, but what the governments find is that they have to do some reporting.
Yeah.
Because if they don't report, then rumors circulate. If it's generally known that there's a news blackout, then rumors circulate like crazy. And rumors are very, very dangerous, especially for an authoritarian government. One rumor can have people running out on the streets and overthrowing the government. So they have to give out some news, but then they generally underreport it. So that if you say no, this is way worse than what they're reporting, then it's you're hysteric. You're getting hysterical.
It's kind of like why they. It's kind of like why they even have a COP meeting, COP26 next year or COP25 this year. I think they'd rather have a meeting every year just to keep pretending they are doing something, right? And I think this year or in December, last December, all they ever tried to do down there in Madrid was to get an agreement about some kind of scheme for cheating with the emissions, to buy, what do you call that? To buy emission allowances or something from other countries.
Carbon credits?
Yeah, carbon credits, yeah. And they couldn't even agree about that. And I think all the respectable climate people I know from Scandinavia and abroad agree that these, what do you call it again? These climate
carbon credits.
Carbon credits. They haven't worked in a single place that have tried it, and in Norway, I think we had them since the 1990s. And
they have. It didn't work any better than the energy trading market that Enron collapsed, and for exactly the same reason.
Yes.
Is once you have a trading market, you have all these people with reverse incentives and people that exactly like Enron, they were manipulating the market. Well, you can manipulate the carbon credits too, and guess what? Everybody has.
And it's like just horse shit basically, and I think. This Bolsonaro, whatever it's called in Brazil, he has just cancelled the RED program where Norway has been paying billions to be allowed to emit carbon from the oil industry in Norway and to plant or keep trees, just keep trees standing in the Amazon. And so Bolsonaro just says, "Thank you for all the fish, and fuck you. We're gonna burn this forest anyway." So.
Yeah, but he's kind of I mean, he's a complete psychopath. But the thing is, though, even a psychopath can say something that's true sometimes, and he goads Europe saying, "Look, you guys burned all your forests. So now, why are you on my case burning the Amazon? Well, okay, maybe the Amazon is the lungs of the world, but maybe the lungs of the world would be in Europe if you left your forests up."
Yeah.
And it's kind of, a strong argument because all our infrastructure was built up by deforestation. Where I'm in Greece, all these islands now, they're kind of barren, some of them. They're barren because they made triremes out of them. It was basically for war. They used all the wood up to make warships.
Yeah, and then
3,000 years ago.
And they never thought of replanting the islands afterwards. It's like the UK, basically, it's a desert more or less biologically.
Yeah, exactly. There's no biodiversity. So that's one of the things that makes me squirm is this simplistic notion that you just plant your trees to get out of climate change, and you say like trees. You can't just plant a monocrop and sidestep carbon emissions. It needs an ecosystem. You need a biodiverse ecosystem. You can't just have a row of trees and say, okay, well, now you're sequestering carbon. Basically, all you've got is a temporary store of carbon that's about to go up in flames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my point I was going to say previously, that if you read the book 6 Degrees by a guy called Linus, I think, from England, who I met actually in my activist days. 6 degrees, so between 2 and 3 degrees Celsius warming since pre-industrial, the Amazon burns. And that's built on what happened the last time we were 2 or 3 degrees above, So the rainforest in the Amazon will burn anyway, somewhere before 3 degrees warming. So if you see it that way, I can kind of understand why Brazil wants to make some use of the forest before it just burns away.
Well, it's at the tipping point. I mean, depending on they have various, trick accounting things to saying, is it as it was? Is it a tipping point? Left for old growth that's still remaining. They have all these tricky ways of working, but
Yeah.
I think more than a few people have said, if we're not past the tipping point, we're pretty well at it now, and it's become a net carbon emitter.
Yeah.
I mean, just switched from being a net carbon emitter in when 2018 or something, wasn't it?
And that's where I have to fit in the blue ocean event and the disappearance of sea ice in the north, up here in Greenland and the Arctic Ocean, because the disappearance, between now and this September or next September or one of the next years, from where we are now until all the ice disappears, there's going to be a setback. The increased insolation, the increased sunshine that hits the ocean instead of the white ice, which is reflected, is going to set us back 25 years in the so-called struggle to stop climate change, because you get so much more heat just from that change from the ice to the non-ice, and that's why it's very easy to see that the ice is connected to the rainforest in the Amazon, because if we get that much warmer, that corresponds to losing 25 years in the climate fight, that triggers the final tipping point in the Amazon, and then it burns, and you get like a shitload of more carbon from those fires,
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean, it's all about the Arctic, isn't it? But so, what happened last year? So last year, the ice, the melt, for 2019, it was roaring down. At one stage, it was going to exceed 2012, which was the minimum, and then suddenly it flattened out. And I thought it was because there were all these storms that caused an early refreeze, so it didn't exceed 2012.
You're talking about the September ice, because if you look at the whole year, the average, which you do for temperature, then it was second lowest both for volume and extent. So it actually beat 2012 on both counts. So it's only the 2012 summer and autumn was, call it lucky or whatever you want. It got lucky weather and lucky storms, for losing the ice. So it's more like, yes, they had some summer storms that year, and they had fewer clouds or something. It's more like that was a freak year in terms of weather. It's like sometimes you get
if you subtract the weather from the picture,
yeah,
the ice plunges down below 2012. It could have almost gone ice free, couldn't it, last year?
Yeah, if the year was like 4 weeks longer or something, but if the summer was 4 weeks longer, but it isn't. So another fear up in the Arctic is these methane clathrates in the seafloor, and people have said, scientists even have said, that we could get a 50 gigaton methane blowout at any time. and that
I've
is
heard about that.
and
I've heard about
that will likely be you know, together in time with the loss of sea ice and together in time with a warming spike that you could get from the factories closing down in China. So it's like a huge jigsaw puzzle that all the pieces are sort of connected in some way, you know. So
Well, it's the perfect storm, isn't it?
yeah,
But you could almost write a sci-fi novel about something
yeah. I
like
was
that.
just going to say that. I think you was that you who wrote that.
I wouldn't trust anything like that. I wouldn't trust anything you read in a novel. But yeah, I've always thought that the methane is what's really going to get us, not the CO2. But the other thing that's I don't hear anybody. I think it's just completely me, and I don't see anybody giving it as much attention as me. But when you look at these graphs and you look at the sea ice and stuff, and you occasionally look at what the scientists are saying, but what strikes me is that they're getting erratic, you know, because I think of things from a term of systems theory, and so I'm looking for things like instability. I never give any credence to a flat line graph in a complex system, but all these guys' graphs are completely smooth, and you say, okay, well, that's bullshit right there. But then when you actually look at things like the temperature and sea ice graphs, the methane, and the more remarkable thing for me is it's getting jagged. The lines are getting jagged. You can see instability there.
Yeah.
And no one seems to comment about it. So I think, you know, people shouldn't be talking about climate change. They shouldn't be talking about global warming or global heating. They should be talking about climate instability. Because a lot of these economists saying as well, you know, we can take an extra degree, you know, that makes the growing season longer. We might get 2 crops in. And you say, not if I give you 3 days, you know, just in the rice seeding season when temperatures spike over 35 degrees, that's the crop for the year gone. And they don't see it that way. They don't account for 3 days of warming in a smooth graph that's, you know, 1 degree hotter for the year.
It's more like wishful thinking, and you've seen that in the virus news sphere as well, because CDC, you know, health authorities in Canada and Norway and stuff will say things that were debunked or that was proven wrong a week ago or something. They will go out and say, yeah, but at least it doesn't spread between humans. Yes, it does. and then they would say these are the top health authorities for public health in each country, and they would say things like, yeah, but it doesn't infect people before the symptoms show up. Yes, they say in China that this is exactly what it does, and in Germany, and so you kind of start wondering, are these people there because they're stupid?
Well, you know, it's kind of like these things like who shot Kennedy. There's so much information from so many sources that it turns into sort of like the fog of war, and it's you know, we might never get to the bottom of how these things really pan out, and you might, you know, a year or 2 from now be hearing different estimates of what the casualty count is, and China could be hiding a huge casualty count, or some other country. African countries have done it. The reason why Ebola spread so quickly from the Congo is because they refuse to admit it, because they're more worried about the economy than they are about you know, the epidemiology. And the same in China. It's like, I think they're starting to close the Hong Kong border now, but they're basically rioting. I think the doctors and nurses are on strike, trying to get Hong Kong to close the border, and you know, China wants to keep it open for political reasons. It's abominable. You know, they don't care about the human health risk. They just care about...
Actually, it came out a day or 2 ago that there was a deal struck in 2018, I think, between all the world governments that the next time there was a pandemic, they would not close down the air traffic and tourism and stuff. So it's like you have these deals that are more important than human life, you know, and these deals are for the economy, of course, for the financial systems, and So if you read that together with, I think that was in New York Times actually. If you read that together with these very very silly statements from the health authorities that no, but it doesn't infect people from people, blah blah. It kind of looks like they are there to cover up the fact that they are ordered by somebody higher up that we are not going to close down air traffic, whatever you say. So it's kind of like a fait accompli, or what do you say in French?
Yeah, but it's a fait accompli is a good word for it. But you know, it seems to me that one of the positive results that might come out of this is that people might finally realize that the economy is more important than human life. So even if you really are the best capitalist in the world, you have to say there's something wrong with this picture, especially if there's a big die-off and the question's asked, could it have been prevented? And they say, yeah, it could have been prevented in 1,000 ways, but we just put the economy ahead of human life.
Yeah, and I was going to compare that decision to a climate decision that I'm pretty sure has been taken as well, without us knowing about it. I'm pretty sure that the economies of the world, the nations of the world, have already figured out that we are past tipping points, and it's going to cost way, way, way too much to try to stop it. So let's just party on, basically, and
Well,
throw a COP meeting, a COP party every December just before Christmas. Just for the kids and for.
Well, that's. I was just talking to Hank.
Yeah, I heard that.
Hank
Yeah.
Hugh, and mentioning in my book that, but I call that the Milliways doctrine. But I'm not really sure there is a Milliways doctrine. I don't have any evidence, but it certainly looks that way. That they have, this kind of gentleman's agreement to say, look, we're
Yeah,
all
that's
screwed.
right. You wrote an entire chapter or something about that Mulloway agreement in the book, didn't you?
Yeah. I just a suspicion I have
Yeah.
that it fits all the facts, basically.
The cafe at the end of the world, was that it?
The restaurant at the end of the universe from Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
It's Milliways is the name of that restaurant, and I kind of see it that way. It's it's party till you drop, because if we're all screwed, why have any caps and emissions? Why have any austerity? Why tax people to hell for a Green New Deal? Just do what they're doing, and it's consistent with how they're behaving.
Yeah.
But if you follow that logic through, it's bleak. No one wants to look that one in the eye.
No. Well, it's like the thing I mentioned about what is not in the climate reports. Because if we really hadn't already crossed the tipping point for the climate and the ice, I can't imagine they wouldn't be writing pages and pages about how close that is and how we must really, work our asses off to try to prevent going over it. But if you read about these numbers from Paris, like 1.5 and 2 degrees, that we should avoid going over that, the only thing they say is like, 2 degrees warming is more serious than 1.5 degrees warming. Duh. So they have clearly, they are clearly admitting between the lines that, and they're also trying to say that there is no magic line in the sand that after that is hopeless. And by saying that, they are sort of admitting that yes, that line in the sand was way, way behind us in the 70s or 80s, and so now we're just trying to please the audience, basically.
Just trying to stop panic, like the Titanic. The crew on the Titanic, give out free drinks so that everybody doesn't notice the waterline coming up.
That's basically it, yeah. So
I think there's quite a bit of evidence for that. The pure lack of response. We're talking before about how to try to read the news in a highly censored environment. Now, most people won't believe that the news is censored, and you're kind of a conspiracy theorist.
What?
If you say you did.
Censored? The news?
Yeah, who would ever think such a thing? But what you learn to do as a South African is you learn to read the body posture of the government.
Yeah.
And so you don't, you obviously take everything with a pinch of salt. You try and read between the lines. You play this kind of game of, guess who, and they know you're playing it, and they know you know that they know, and all that kind of stuff. But what was really quite definitive was the body posture. And by that I mean, like, for example, just before South Africa kind of collapsed and conceded that it wasn't going to work, and they were going to have to negotiate with Mandela, and precipitated Mandela's release. It was kind of a capitulation internally. Just before they did that, they did a massive, military parade and a huge show of strength and stuff. And everybody kind of knew if, the only reason why you throw, gargantuan show of strength is because you're crumbling. So
Yeah.
they knew we were crumbling. And so you kind of read the governments like that too. And I think in those ways is the fact that they're not doing anything is speaking volumes.
So to round this off, are you writing currently on a new book? Is it a series?
I would like to, but I'll just see how this one does first. I'm writing a lot on XRMed on Reddit.
I know.
And
I
I'm doing
noticed.
quite a bit of videos as well. I'll have to see how well the book does first before I decide, because it's, as you know, how many books have you written? You've written.
Actually, 7 years ago today, I published my debut novel, my one and only novel, actually, and I
Olaf Palmer. The
yeah, and the 22nd July terror thing in Norway, and I actually published it on the train. I was going from Bergen to Oslo, and we stopped at a tiny station in a tiny village called Dale, or Dale in English, and we stopped like 5 minutes, and it was just enough time for me to upload the finished novel to my server. So it's like it was published during a 5-minute break on a station where there was some Wi-Fi, I think. So that was like 4th of February 2013. Yeah, that was when I published my first novel.
Nice. Yeah, I would like to do another one. It's quite a big investment in terms of time and effort, and people kind of lose your audience on the YouTube channel because they assume you died or something. Especially in my case, they assume a U.S. submarine took me out in the night, I think.
Yeah. So. Yeah, maybe I could save one of my questions for your book. I can save for after this interview.
Okay.
But it was nice talking to you again, and I'm very much looking forward to having you back on this channel. Let's say maybe April, when you said that this virus was going to be over. I don't believe you.
Peaking. It's supposed to peak and then tail off after that. Yeah.
Okay, I heard it was gonna peak like in a week or two from now, but we can check back in April, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna have things to talk about even then.
Yeah, that'll be excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, see you, man.
Cheers. Bye.
Hang on.
Yes.
We had Jeremy.
Yeah,
Corbyn,
everything's going south. Yeah,
everything
sure.
is
It's all going
south.
south, right?
Yeah,
Right. It's going south, but it's not all or nothing. It doesn't mean that it goes south until everything completely vanishes.
Yeah, but do you think
right? Which many people can easily say that it's all going south. There's absolutely
Okay.
nothing we can do.